Hello, and welcome to Back Through the Lens, where two film school friends talk about movies through the haze of nostalgia, the good, the bad, and the ones that aren't quite how we remember them. I'm your host, Rachel, and with me is my co host, Joe.
We all have those movies we couldn't get enough of as a kid. Maybe we were obsessed with a certain character or an action sequence. Maybe it was simply a movie our siblings always put on or a hallmark of our family movie night. Sometimes you might not even know why a particular movie caught your interest so hard in your younger years. We delve deep into our inner workings of our young minds on today's episode topic movies we watched repeatedly as kids.
Well, welcome to the first episode of Back Through the Lens. If you're hearing this, a miracle of technology has occurred.
Yeah, something like that.
We don't know what we're doing, guys.
Yeah. But welcome.
But welcome. Welcome to our brand new podcast. Okay, so the movie I picked for what I watched repeatedly as a kid is Ghostbusters 2, directed by Ivan Reitman, released June 16th, 1989, rated PG. If you aren't familiar with the Ghostbusters themselves, it's a group of grown men who fight ghosts. You'd call them in the way you'd call exterminators. In Ghostbusters 2, the group gets back together in order to fight a river of slime that feeds off of people's emotions and to stop a 16th century tyrant from coming back to life. So, I couldn't tell you the first time that I saw Ghostbusters 2, but I know that when I was younger, I watched it all the time on TBS or some similar cable channel.
Same.
Um, I had never even seen the first Ghostbusters at that point. I was not into the Ghostbusters as far as I'm aware, but I watched Ghostbusters 2 over and over, and I don't know why it had such a hold on me. Um, I was into some creepy stuff like the X-Files, so maybe that's why.
I just don't think creepy the first thing I think of when I think of Ghostbusters 2. But maybe if I can reimagine it being 9 years old and watching TBS, I can kind of see it.
Yeah, I guess my mystery with all this is why I latched onto this movie so hard. And we've discussed this previously, but I feel like it's just TBS, TNT, those cable channels that always showed certain movies. And I caught this once, and apparently I watched it every other time it was on afterward. um, but again, having not seen the first movie, I don't think that is something I would ever do now
Right.
because I need to go in order.
Yeah, I do the same
um,
thing.
yeah. Um, but
Uh,
yeah, so I, as far as I knew, did not care about the Ghostbusters as a franchise, but in preparing for this episode, I obviously rewatched it. I had not seen it in a really, really long time. And I still remember every line of dialogue like it was yesterday. Like it
nice.
really was, it was such a funny experience watching it back because I mean, I probably haven't watched this since I was a kid. I couldn't tell you the last time I saw it, but I remembered everything, every beat, the way every line was delivered. I could probably recite the entirety of Ghostbusters 2 to you right now. Um, I'm
Bonus
not because
episode.
that's yeah, that's not for this episode.
No, no. We ain't got time for that.
Um, so what about you? When was the first time you had seen this?
Ghostbusters 2. Uh, it has to be same timeline. 7 to 10 years old on cable. Probably TBS, maybe Comedy Central, because they had that on a lot. I did recall there was a Ghostbusters 1. However, in my mind as a child, for some reason, I thought it was a trilogy, 1, 2, and a third one I could never find on TV. It was always showing 1 or 2 because the third one didn't exist. And it just seemed like, you know, not to go too much into the first movie, but like the ending of that movie sticks out in my mind when they're the little dog gremlin things and the marshmallow man comes. And the end of 2 sticks out in my mind with the painting and the river of slime. But somehow the first halves of 1 and 2 seem like a movie in itself when I was a kid. And I maybe because it was always on cable and I didn't own it on DVD because DVDs wasn't a thing back then. I didn't own it on VHS. And so I just would catch it in chunks, and it was always the same parts. So if I saw anything new, I think I assumed it was the third Ghostbusters that didn't exist. Um, yeah, that's all it's the only way I can really describe that. But in preparing for this episode, I did order the DVD one and two and watch them back to back just to kind of get some memory of it. But before that, it's probably been a few solid years since I like purposely sat down and watched either movie. I've always liked them, but never been like one of the, like, to quote you, like a Ghostbusters kid. I did watch the cartoon as a child.
I remember watching the cartoon as well, but I couldn't tell you if that was before or after I got into the movie.
Yeah, I think the cartoon, besides being animated, had its appeal for children because Slimer was such a more of a main character and was fun.
Yeah, that's actually something that really stuck out to me watching both of these movies back is how much or how little Slimer is really in them.
Yeah,
And maybe he really was just created to be product placement for High C,
yeah,
as far as I'm concerned.
I think that's part of it. Yeah, I don't know why they attached themselves to Slimer for the cartoon, but maybe it was product placement. As far as I've heard and read, Slimer is supposedly like the ghost in Belushi because he was friends with Aykroyd and whatnot, and they kind of wanted something to represent him in some way in the film, and they chose Slimer.
Actually, I had never heard that.
Yeah.
Hmm. So, Ghostbusters 2, it starts with a little text saying 5 years later, so 5 years after the events of the first movie. When I was watching this as a kid, that meant nothing to me because I hadn't seen the first movie. Uh, I had no idea what happened in it. Truly, I had no knowledge of the first movie except that there was a Marshmallow Man, but I
Okay.
didn't know like what that meant. I thought it was like a ghost maybe that they had to fight. I don't know. I just knew the imagery of the big Marshmallow Man.
Right.
So in the opening scene, we see Dana walking her baby down the street. And I assume if you had seen the first movie, this really meant something to you because she was a character in the first movie, did not have a baby in the first movie. And also, you would probably assume she was with Venkman
Yeah.
because of how the first movie ended. Again, meant nothing to me as a child. It was just a random lady walking her baby down the street. And then I'm just saying, for a person who was actually a fan of the first movie, that's a lot of suggestion and a nice introduction to this character you already know.
Right.
um for me, not so.
But it kind of works in either way.
Oh, it obviously still worked. I obviously had no trouble like following the movie.
Right. Exactly.
um but it sets up some questions about what's happened in those 5 years if you had seen the first one, I guess, is my point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
uh so her baby carriage becomes possessed. And again, this would have meant a little more having seen the first movie because apparently Dana Barrett attracts ghosts. This is like, as I watch these two movies together for this episode, all I could think of is like, why do all the ghosts happen to this one lady in New York City?
Sometimes that's not the house that's haunted; it's the people. Maybe she's just prone to poltergeist.
Okay, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. It's also Sigourney Weaver in the late '80s, early '90s. So I mean, I kind of get it.
Yeah. They just really wanted to bring Sigourney Weaver back. So they're like, it's going to be
Yeah.
you again,
Yeah.
dealing with the ghosts. There you go. I mean, I don't really blame them. I really like Sigourney Weaver. Um, but we also see that the Ghostbusters are out of business. We assume they're broke because two of them are doing birthday parties. They're kind of working odd jobs. This is what always confused me, even as a kid watching this, because I at least knew of the existence of the first Ghostbusters movie. You assume there's a first movie because they saved New York City from ghosts in some way, shape, or form. They fought ghosts. And then they're at this birthday party in the sequel, and all these kids are like, my dad thinks everything's made up. He doesn't think ghosts are real, blah, blah, blah. Did you not all see
Right.
the giant marshmallow man and all the ghosts in the first movie?
So here's kind of my question. You didn't see the
Mhm.
first one, yet you recall imageries of giant marshmallow man and like, okay, this is the second Ghostbusters. It's literally number two. Without seeing the movie, you remembered they busted ghosts, as it were. The entire city that was saved somehow forgot, and now they're like a joke.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, not that either of these movies really makes sense, but, this is the one thing that has always bothered me about Ghostbusters 2 is that in a 5-year span where there were very obviously ghosts happening in a very, populated metro area, like, you assume this Marshmallow Man thing would be news anywhere, but especially, like, New York City,
Right.
that's, like, international news probably. In a 5-year span, the Ghostbusters have no money, no business, and they're reduced to doing birthday parties with kids telling them that, like, ghosts aren't real.
I mean, I would get it if they went out of business because they did bust all the ghosts, and there's no more ghosts to bust, and now that's their main business, and now the business is no longer booming.
Mhm.
Sure, but a 50-plus-foot marshmallow man that everybody saw, don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't believe that everyone in the city had collective amnesia.
Right, and it didn't make sense to you watching it then, and well, I rewatched it for this episode and watched it back to back. And yes, it says 5 years later on screen, but you're like, bro, really? Like they're like doing birthday parties and Peter's like a late night talk show fake psychic.
Yeah.
Egon's working at a college, I think. Some sort of he's the actually
I
like
think
he's the brainiac of the group, I think.
right, he's the only one with a real job, I
Yeah.
would argue. Although
Yes.
Ray runs a bookstore as well.
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting that. They were
Yeah,
like for the
bookstore and birthday
occult.
parties. Mhm.
Yeah,
Which again, you're living in a world where ghosts have happened.
they have.
I don't know.
No, I didn't want to get ahead, but what I was going to say is it sets up for the foil later with the mayor or his cronies. Like that seems to be a repeat. Like with classic sequels, you repeat what made you
Mhm.
successful in the previous one. And it's like, oh, we don't believe you. We're gonna fight about it. And then I really think it's the only thing they're doing here.
That's a good point, probably.
It's a good point, probably.
Moving on. Dana goes to talk to the Ghostbusters about the fact that her baby carriage became possessed,
Of course,
but
she's the one person in New York that didn't forget.
yes, the one person in New York that didn't forget. Um, Going back briefly into what all these Ghostbusters current jobs are now in this movie, this was my first introduction to Peter as a character, Peter Venkman, because I did not see the first movie.
Right.
Um, and I feel like it really colored him a certain way for me because I always thought he was so like mean
Yeah.
to everyone and over the top, and I really can't see Dana dating him, especially when we find out that Dana is a professional musician in the symphony who apparently spent her maternity leave volunteering at the art museum,
She's
which by the
gifted.
way, right, but also that sounds like a great luxurious maternity leave.
It doesn't, because to me, I feel like leave means you're not working, but I guess.
She was volunteering
Oh, that's right. Jesus.
to do art. So that being said, Dana is volunteering at the art museum while on maternity leave. I can appreciate what you're saying because on maternity leave, I probably would not want to be out and about volunteering at the art museum, to be fair.
Right.
But you know. So Janosch is her boss, her supervisor at the art museum. um, Janosch, who was later in Ally McBeal without an accent.
Yeah,
Um, for the rest of my life, everything I've ever seen him in, I was like, oh, it's Janosch from Ghostbusters 2.
100%.
And why doesn't he have an accent? Because I associate him, I just assume this is
Real
his
life.
normal voice. Yes, because this is how I first was introduced to him. Janosch is Dana's supervisor, boss at the museum. We see, of course, after Dana has left this particular exhibit, we have this introduction of Vigo, the Scourge of Carpathia, the son of Mondavia. And this portrait of Vigo possesses Janosch by zapping him in the face. And all of a sudden, Janosch is very interested in doing his bidding. And I always thought it was so awkward, though, the way he goes, "Oh, command me, Lord." Just makes him sound really enthusiastic.
Yes.
Um, Meanwhile, Dana has gone to get the Ghostbusters help in, saving her baby from this slime. And this is how Peter realizes that Dana is kind of back in his social circle and also has a baby who, as he says, was named after a hot dog, which I have to agree. Well, I thought Muppets, not hot dog, but I always thought Oscar was such an odd name for a baby when I was a kid.
I think hot dog first. And it's funny because it's been a while since I've seen this movie, and in my like notes when I was taking, and I forgot the baby was named Oscar, and I wrote like the hot dog, and then 10 minutes later, Bill Murray says, "I'm like, damn, I don't know if that's subconscious or I just literally forgot, but I thought it was kind of funny."
I just always thought of like Oscar the Grouch and then trash cans. So
Mm.
I was like, why would you want that association with your baby? Because I didn't understand. I just don't know how you don't think that,
Either
or at
way,
least
it's
as a kid.
not the best. Like you either think of angry trash cans or hot dogs.
Yeah.
You're not really. Neither one's the best choice.
So the Ghostbusters decide to dig under the street for this slime that
Right.
was part of whatever possessed Dana's baby carriage. I never have quite followed how they figured out this was what they were supposed to do.
I think she described the little carriage going through New York and where it had started and or stopped. I think that was near the museum, and they, I don't know, use scientific theory to say, well, let's go to where the carriage stopped and let's test there. I believe that's what happened.
Fair enough.
Like why was it drawn to that spot? Not why is it possessed, which is another question, but why did it go where it had to go?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Um, the thing I remember most about this scene of them digging or jackhammering, I guess, the road, obviously Venkman talking to the cop and pretending to just be a very put upon like, construction worker. But I was always so genuinely scared for Ray because they just kind of leave him down there, and the slime is just feels very hard to escape.
Oh
And
yeah.
as a kid who was really into like the X-Files and stuff, I was just like, "Oh, this is a really good monster." Like
Oh
that's
yeah.
what I remember thinking, like
Yeah.
this feels difficult to defeat. Um because it's everywhere and it's formless and it's not. And how do you stop from being grabbed by it if, your coworkers are up on the top of the road arguing with the cops?
Dan Aykroyd, he sells it pretty well because at first, like Ghostbusters, they do well in like balancing comedy and horror, and Aykroyd's usually the funny guy. Uh, but while Bill Murray is proving that if you just talk in a very generic Brooklyn Bronx accent, you can get away with literally digging in the middle of the street, they're leaving him dangled there. And at first, it's kind of funny, but he, as in Dan Aykroyd, like he plays up his fear pretty well for a comedy actor. And at least as a kid, I remember going like, it is going to get him. At first, it's like, okay, it's kind of silly. It's slime. It's a river of slime. It's a great line, but like it's kind of silly. And also just the idea of just this giant river of slime going unnoticed under one of the world's biggest cities is also silly. Then as it's like starting to get to him, like trying to reach up for him, he's like worried, but you don't really feel the urgency till like it's almost touching his boot. And then you're like, pull him up, please, dear Lord. So yeah, kudos to Dan Aykroyd for that one.
Yeah, I tend to think of Ghostbusters, I guess, more of a comedy than anything
Absolutely.
else. Even though I realize it has ghosts in it, I don't really think of them as scary ghosts. Um, and my own personal barometer for that is, could I watch this alone at night? And Ghostbusters, I definitely could. But yeah, I feel like that scene is genuinely scary. And at least as a kid, I remember always being so worried they weren't going to get him in time, even though I had seen this movie a million times.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I definitely agree with you on all of that. Um, so because of all this jackhammering into the road, the power goes out in New York City. Um, Dana just has open flames around her baby, which
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things too, like certain little things hit me different watching this again as an adult because I do have a child now. Just some decisions people make sometimes around their very small baby. Um, but this leads to one of my favorite parts of the entire movie when Janos shows up at her apartment, pretending to be there to see if she needs help. He's actually there because he's now been possessed by Vigo and they're trying to get to the baby. And s- there's something with Janos liking Dana where if Vigo can get to the baby, he'll make sure Janos can have Dana, right?
Well, yeah, because the painting has promised. Well, he needs to he needs a child so he can come back into the physical world. And because Dana works at the museum, she just I don't know somehow knows she has a newborn baby. I mean, maybe the carriage thing. It's all tied together, right? And being possessed of Janos obviously is in his mind somewhat. He knows he clearly has some sort of crush on Dana. So it's like, well, she has a baby. I need the body of the baby to grow up in this world. You can have Dana. Once I rule the world as an infant, you can have his mother, I guess.
I need the body of this baby to rule the world.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know
Yeah, I
why you
know.
can't pick a grown adult, but hey.
Man, I don't make the rules.
Mm-mm.
He does, I guess. But my absolute favorite part, potentially, of this whole movie is when Dana answers the door and Janos is trying to, I don't know, say hi to the baby, even though he doesn't see the baby anywhere. And he goes, woo, into the doorway. And Dana says, oh, the baby's sleeping. And Janos says, oh, but I woo. I guess my opinion is that this man would be just as awkward if he wasn't possessed by a painting.
Yes.
And I'm just, I don't know. Imagine your slightly strange boss showing up to your apartment in the middle of a blackout when you're alone with your baby, like wooing at your door. Like,
Yeah.
I think even as a kid, I was like, I don't like this kind of workplace situation for Dana
And
as
they're
a
also
single
kind of
mother.
well, right, yeah. And well, it's weird that he goes out and he's there right away. I did like this scene too. I think mostly for the lighting in the hallway, the creepy,
Mhm.
sexy red. His was it? I know I just like watched this recently, but his eyes were glowing, but he couldn't see through walls, right?
I
I don't
I
remember.
always assumed the glowing was coming from his eyes, like to light his way in the dark hallway. I did not assume he could see through walls.
He didn't like see where she lived, and then not. Maybe he knew. I don't know,
I
but
I think he
it's
knew. Well, here's the thing, he could have known that even without the possession because he could have just
true.
looked at her file.
Yeah, and well,
So,
that's the thing too. Is the but I woo. I don't think I think there's times where he's possessed and not. And I think this is just Janos being Janos because he's a weird dude. But it kind of harks back at the first movie where she lived across from oh my god, what's his name?
oh, Lewis.
Lewis. Thank you. And he clearly had some sort of crush on her too. It's just this like through line or repeat line of awkward nerdy gentleman callers on Dana. Like she
Yeah,
tracks ghosts and weird dudes.
that's something that hit me too rewatching both of these movies, that I had completely forgotten about Lewis being into her in the first movie. So obviously when I was rewatching this over and over again as a kid, I had no idea that,
Mm-hmm.
Lewis and Dana even knew each other necessarily. Um, Speaking of Lewis, brings me to one of my other favorite quotes of this movie. Um, we're in the courtroom because the Ghostbusters got in trouble for digging up the street for seemingly no reason. Lewis is their lawyer for some reason. He went to night school, I think he says.
It's the
Um,
only lawyer they could probably afford.
that's true too, yes. And also, he probably feels like he owes them because as Lewis is pleading his case to the court, he's trying to explain how the Ghostbusters are actually good and helpful and, whatever. And he says, "One time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you." And
I do love that line.
I love that line. And a lot of it's his delivery, obviously.
Oh yeah,
But
100%.
um but obviously now I understand what that is referencing because I've seen both movies. And he absolutely did turn into a dog. He was a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as a kid, I was just like, oh, I guess they have some history with this guy that he used to be a dog. I apparently this, even though I thought the line was always very funny, when I would watch this all the time, it was just like, oh, okay, one time he was a dog. You just accept these things, I guess.
If you're keeping score at home, that is now two people that actually remember the Ghostbusters saved the day. Two
There
out
we
of
go.
however many millions of people live in that city.
It's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. I guess if I was turned into a dog and they saved me, I would remember. Thank you.
Watching this as an adult, I couldn't help thinking how absolutely unhinged this judge was.
Yeah.
So dramatic, even before the ghosts come out. Just really hoping this is not how real people do their work in a courtroom. He wants them burned at the stake because they dug a hole in the ground. These people
It's
hate the Ghostbusters.
hate them.
That's
And
what
yeah,
that's what strikes me about this scene is it's not even they've forgotten. They really actively hate the Ghostbusters.
I don't know why. Like,
I don't know.
they
What'd they ever do to you?
decide to save your city. And
Right.
yeah, and it's, he has that funny line at the end, Lewis's speech, but like at the beginning part, I remember like jotting down, it was actually kind of solid. He's like, oh, I'm not a good lawyer. And then he has this like opening speech, and then he ends with that. And I thought it was pretty solid, even though he's not that kind of lawyer. I think, was he like finance lawyer or something like that? Like, definitely not
He
a
wasn't like a
defense.
criminal.
Yeah,
Yeah. I remember
yeah,
that now.
yeah. And yeah, the judge, like off the rip, is just like throwing the book at them is a mild understatement. Like, he wants to burn them like witches. Um,
For digging a hole.
yeah, for digging a hole without a permit in New York City.
To be fair, they made everyone's power go out, but still.
Right. And you have to wonder, like, they still don't believe them, even though you can just like peek down the hole and see the river of slime.
Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah, why
Which
didn't they
I,
just look in the hole?
yeah, I don't know. I
Because
literally
then the
never
movie
thought
would
of
be
that before.
over.
Right, exactly. I never thought of that until literally just now. Like, the whole time you're like
Yeah.
watching the court scenes, like, man, this guy's an asshole. And it leads to the next part here. But yeah, you could have just, well, I mean, wait, they had slime in the jar. That's what leads to the next part is they have a sample from what they dug up. Like, look, we found this, sir, under the streets of New York. We were investigating. And then,
I yeah, I think much like forgetting about the Marshmallow Man, they just don't want to acknowledge any of this
yeah, yeah,
exists.
yeah, the mayor's assistant mayor, I don't know, whatever that guy's title is, he's out to get them. It feels like he has people in his pocket, or I don't know, as everyone doesn't seem to like the Ghostbusters, even though they're literally just there to help. But yeah, so then the guy gets all crazy, and they have a jar of slime they got from the river,
Hmm.
and we don't know this yet, but it starts it starts to activate because of the negative energy of this very brimstone-y
Very,
judge.
very unhinged judge.
Very unhinged.
Um, yeah, so we suddenly have two ghosts burst out, ghosts of two criminals that the judge had previously sentenced to death. Seems like his thing. Um,
There's a pattern here.
I was watching this. My dog was sitting on the couch with me, and she got scared when the ghost burst out.
That's awesome.
She jumped up and was very concerned. Um,
I like how the judge
another,
recognized them right away too.
yeah, he doesn't believe in ghosts or anything, but he's like, "Oh, those are the ghosts of these two people specifically."
That I
Especially because
put to
they
death.
don't really, yeah, especially because like the ghosts don't really look like people anymore. They look like gremlins or something.
Yeah, they're a little altered, a little scarier.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but leads us to another classic line when at least the three of the four Ghostbusters who are in the court suit up, get ready to bust some ghosts. They start up their protein packs and they say, "Do,
Pro-
Ray, Egon."
yeah,
Protein. Yeah.
yeah. Protein pack. Were they working out at the fucking courtroom? You want to try that one again? No, you're leaving it in. I love it.
Oh my god.
Get my protein packs. I ain't afraid of no ghosts now.
They're proton packs.
Nah, it's protein packs now.
Oh my god. Look, I'm not gonna lie. It's not like I knew what a proton was when I was a kid, so.
Not yet, at least. No, a couple years before
No?
we take that kind of science.
Okay. So anyway, the point is I like that line.
It is a good line. It kind of gives Egon. It plays up his silly nerd dumbness. Neither one of those are words. That's okay.
That's fine. There's an earlier line about Egon that he used to straighten out his slinky. And all I can remember or all I was thinking during the whole movie was like, I could totally believe that he straightened out his slinky.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so suddenly, during this whole movie,
Mm-hmm.
no one believes in ghosts. The Ghostbusters are stupid. Suddenly there are ghosts.
Ghostbusters are stupid. Another ghost. Uh,
But like, did the slime bring the ghosts back? Is that what we're supposed to think?
I always thought that. I know that they have a correlation, and Egon like kind of talks about it more later as they're doing more like studies, but human emotion and energy with the slime, it reacts negatively or positively. I think, if I'm not mistaken, as they after they do their testing, they talk about that. The theory and assumption is New York being kind of known for its, hardened exterior, angry, that New York vibe, uh, brought out
Oh yeah, it was
all
the
these
angry New
ghosts.
Yorker thing.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know why it specifically brought ghosts back, but
But there was something about New Yorkers being angry, and that's why the slime formed under New York. I remember this now.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Slime ghosts.
Probably thinking too much about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, now everyone believes in ghosts again.
Yep. Just like
The
that.
end. Yeah. um Apparently this is where we have the Slimer cameo because I have a note that says, "Was Slimer their friend?"
Yeah.
And you know what? I still don't know. I have a note here that there were no ghosts in New York City between 1984 and 1989, which
I mean, clearly.
is factual. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now there are ghosts in broad daylight running into joggers. You had a good note in here about their Ghostbusters commercial.
Oh yeah. So yeah, now they're Ghostbusters again, right? People believe in ghosts, and they are, in fact, are afraid of them. And now, there's a montage. The phones are ringing. They hired all their staff back, and their business is booming because there's ghosts that need busting, and they have a commercial, and in the bottom of their commercial they have a website on it in 1989. Didn't like think
Yep.
anything of that when I was a child, but on the rewatch, you're like, oh shit, man, Al Gore did invent the internet, didn't he? Way
On
back
Al
when.
Gore's internet?
Yeah,
Yeah,
on
I never
Al
noticed
Gore.
that, even rewatching it.
Yeah, it's like something so
Um,
quick, and you don't think about it, but at one point you don't see it so much now. It's subtle on modern commercials. It's because everything has a website, but mid 90s, man, every commercial was like, please go to our website at www dot blah 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 blah, because it was new then. It's new for
oh, yeah.
businesses to have websites, and this is kind of before that. How common are people like in New York City, 1989? They're watching a commercial with the Ghostbusters, and they're jumping on their maybe office computer on their dial-up internet to. Did they have a website? Like, can you just like go to Ghostbusters.com and book a busting? I don't know how that worked,
It's a good point, actually.
but they were ahead of the
And
time. So
you only ever see their secretary answering phones, so
always, she's very
I don't
busy.
know. I do want to note Winston is always left out of things.
The vibe I always got was because of the first one.
Mm.
He was the hired gun. Like they needed a fourth person,
He
and he
wasn't as
applied.
into the science part of it, I guess.
Well, to be fair, I don't know if Peter is either. I feel like he
I
just
mean,
tries
yeah.
to disprove psychic abilities or fake that he has them. But
Hmm.
I feel like the three scientists are kind of like the faces of the company. Maybe they even bought into it. But when in the first movie they were being successful Ghostbusters, they needed one more person, even though they work in tandem as a team.
Hmm.
Um, and that's when Winston comes in. They're like, "You got it, man. You're a tough New Yorker that can take ghosts." So I think he like maybe just is like, I'm gonna stay out of this until you really need me.
Yeah, I will say that did make more sense going back to the first movie and seeing the way he was hired on.
Yeah,
But again, child me had never seen the
right.
first one, so
But in my head, it's just like, yeah, this guy was the first person like they hired as a Ghostbuster, not like a secretary or whatever part-time lawyer.
mhm.
And I figured maybe he's like, just let me know when it's time to clock in, and I'll suit up.
So we have a scene where Egon is testing out the slime. They put it in a toaster
Hmm.
and they play Jackie Wilson for it. This is what I think about anytime I hear this song.
Same, absolutely same.
Uh, it's also one of my husband and mine songs because we were at a bar once singing it very loudly to each other. And that all being said, I still associate with Ghostbusters 2 more than my husband. At the same time, we start seeing slime infiltrating the city, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
Dana's giving her baby a bath. Slime starts coming in through the faucet instead of water. The slime in the bathtub always scared me. Um, because again, it's everywhere, it's inescapable. You don't know where it's gonna show up. And the way the bathtub lurches toward Dana and her baby,
yeah.
there aren't too many scenes in this movie that are, to me, could be out of a genuine horror movie, and I feel like that is one of them. The way she gives a full-on horror movie scream trying to escape her bathtub.
That scene and when Winston's in the tunnel are like the scary scenes for me.
Mhm.
Um, Want to back step a quick second, talking about the toaster. So that's when we find out it reacts to negative energy, hence the theory, but also positive energy. I didn't notice this as a kid, but did Egon sleep with the slime? And I don't mean like next to him in bed. Did he have adult relations with goo?
I thought he slept with it next to him in bed, but I also
The
can be
faces they all
naive
make.
sometimes. I don't know. I thought they were just making fun of him.
He. So you know how you could believe that he unwound a slinky?
You can believe that. I don't know,
Yeah.
man.
Moving on.
Moving on. Dana flees to Venkman's apartment with her baby. Uh, Somehow the Ghostbusters make the connection between the portrait and the slime and the art museum. Is it because it is flowing to the art museum?
I believe so, if I
Do
remember
we?
correctly.
Okay.
That, and I
Um,
think that she mentions Janos being all weird, and they kind of where the carriage, baby carriage, went in the beginning, where the slime's
mm,
going, and then just Janos being really weird. I think they kind of put their heads together and figured that out. They're scientists, damn
sure.
it.
They're scientists. This is what they do. So they do walk into the museum, take some pictures of this portrait. You see Ray have a moment where he's maybe getting drawn into the portrait a little too much,
Yeah.
which is foreshadowing, I guess.
Oh, I thought the photo shoot scene was always funny. Um, Bill Murray's hamming it up. Uh, but yeah, you see Ray kind of get hypnotized, and they have to kind of like snap him back into reality, so to speak. And then maybe that's where they also draw the connection. So they kind of obviously go to the art museum because of all the other reasons, but I think they start hyper focusing on Vigo because of Ray's reaction. But then they also
Mhm.
develop the film from the camera, and they like see all these other things going on in the painting that is not
Mhm.
there on the surface level.
So while they are investigating this link between the slime and the art museum and this portrait, Dana decides to go on a date with Venkman and leave her baby with babysitters? I am not trying to mom shame. This is just not the choice I would be making right now. She recruits Janine to watch Oscar,
Hmm.
if I'm recalling this correctly. And then Janine invites Lewis to come with her to watch Oscar. I do really like the way that Lewis asks her out. Do you want to have something to eat with me? Okay, I would. It's just a very silly exchange. Winston, Egon, and Ray go to investigate River of Slime. Venkman's going on a date with Dana instead of investigating the River of Slime. Still, again, if I was Dana, wouldn't you encourage him to go investigate the thing that was trying to take your child away? That's all I'm saying. So the three of them are in the tunnel. Um, Poor Winston.
Yeah,
They
right.
start seeing things because of the slime. The slime is creating visions and ghosts and whatever. And when they see the heads on spikes, that was to me one of the more frightening images in this movie. I still got
Absolutely.
creeped out by it. Yeah. Uh my son came in the room while I was watching this, and I kept thinking like, oh, he could watch the Ghostbusters because it's like silly, like kind of creepy, but mostly silly. And I had paused it while he came in. I hit play, and it was the head on a spike scene.
Oh
And
no.
so my son has zero interest in watching the Ghostbusters anytime soon.
That's
So
fair.
congrats to me on being a great parent.
You really Dana that one up. That
um
that scene is a little. That's on the creepier side. The art style of the heads and spikes and everything in that tunnel scene is different than we see even with like Vigo at his like most frightening. It is more realistic, I want to say, um,
mhm.
more practical in the artifacts, and then a ghost train basically runs through him.
The train is intense.
Yeah,
Even
that
though, like,
whole
obviously he's going to be okay.
right.
I have a note. Why didn't they bring their proton packs down with them?
Oof, that's a good question.
Why did they just do this empty-handed? Anything could have happened to them.
Because they after the courtroom scene, they received their stuff back. Yeah, yeah. Because
I would
now they're
like to
doing the
think so. How
commercials.
else would they be busting ghosts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah,
So yeah, somehow we get out of the River of Slime. They jump into the River of Slime to save Winston,
yeah.
and then they barge in on Dana and Venkman's date covered in slime. I understand that there's like this little scene before that where they're taking off their outer layer of clothes in order to get the slime off them, but they are obviously still covered in slime when they get into
Hmm.
the restaurant. Like, I don't understand how this works, that you just take the one layer of clothing off and you're good. Like, it's everywhere. Egon was telling them, or one of them tells them to take off their clothes because the slime is affecting them.
Yeah,
But then why is it no longer affecting them when they're in the restaurant?
maybe it's a ratio slime to contact. I don't know.
Alright.
It made sense though. It made sense watching it. I mean, yeah, it's still like in their hair, on their face, on their undergarments, but it's maybe they're less than when it was like stuck to their onesies.
Probably thinking too much about it again.
Yeah.
So this is how the Ghostbusters end up being arrested. Uh, all of them, though, including Bickman. Uh, Dana goes home. Janine asks where Peter is, and she says he was arrested, as if this is just, a thing that happens from time to time.
I mean, they just were almost
They
arrested
were,
not
yeah.
that far, not that long ago. It's weird that like this is what gets them arrested. They're being annoying at a restaurant.
um, this is also when we find out that Lewis is a film buff.
Mm-hmm. It was a little random scene. I kind of liked it though.
Yeah, I think he was explaining Citizen Kane to Janine.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think you're right.
So at this point, we have the Ghostbusters attempting to plead their case to the mayor about this river of slime and how this is going to ruin New York. And again, why is this mayor so dismissive when all of this has happened before?
Yeah. Well,
I
you
mean,
gotta.
people have been seeing ghosts all over the city, apparently,
Hmm.
like recently. You have to have a bad guy. I don't know.
A painting of a Carpathian isn't bad guy enough. We need someone. You need to up the
You need to
stakes. Like,
raise the stakes. There you
yeah,
go.
they
Yep.
can't just, oh, there's the bad guy, shoot him with our packs and call it a day. It's like, oh no, we got to take their packs, put them in jail, discredit them for like the fifth time this movie.
Yeah. To the point now where they're committed to an asylum by the mayor's assistant.
Yeah, which
Is
is
that what we're calling
pretty
him?
harsh. Yeah, we'll call him the assistant mayor.
Hmm. So meanwhile in the art museum, Janosch and Vigo are, I guess, plotting, and they're gonna go get Dana's baby, use it to bring Vigo back to life and out of the painting. I don't know. Um, Dana will be Janosch's wife. Whatever. I don't know. I
I mean, that's exactly right. That's,
I still get so scared when the baby gets kidnapped. Like, you have Oscar crawling out on a ledge of their apartment building. They are many, many, many floors up.
hmm.
And he ends up like walking on a ledge out to a ghost, which kidnaps him. And I just still get so scared for this baby walking on the ledge of the apartment. Like, I know how all this goes.
Right. Yeah. Some babysitters hope they get a poor review on Yelp. This baby just starts
No, no,
crawling
no.
around.
There were two babysitters, and his mom was there
Oh, yeah, his
at
mom's
that
back.
point.
Ah,
Yeah.
Jesus. Let's go on. Whatever. Also, hashtag baby's first steps. But it gets
Okay.
kidnapped by this older lady ghost in a vintage bicycle,
Hmm.
and I couldn't help but think Wizard of Oz vibes. I don't know if anyone else caught that, but that's my personal
Hmm.
theory. Little throwback or nod, wink, whatever you want to call it.
Yep, I did also think of the Wizard of Oz. Don't worry, you're not the only one.
Nice.
Um, so at this point, we are back at the art museum. Dana knows it was Janos who took her baby. Um, when the museum door closes and the slime comes down, that always makes me think of the elevator scene in The Shining.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
So Dana gets to the museum. Her son's in this, like, he's like on a pedestal, I guess, for lack of a better word. She runs in, grabs her baby, and instead of running back out, or at least trying to run back out, because, the doors are covered in slime now, maybe she couldn't, she just stands there and hugs him. And I just, to this day, I'm yelling at the screen, like, why don't you run? But I assume this is a problem we have with a lot of different movies.
Yeah. She's not hypnotized by the painting like Ray was. No.
No.
Maybe she's just scared.
No, she just stands there and hugs her baby and is so relieved to have him back.
Which I can understand, but yeah, to your point, why not just
But, like, get away from the bad guy first.
yeah? If you can't go
That's
outside,
all
go
I'm
to like
saying.
many rooms in a museum. That's not have a painting of an evil guy trying to possess your child.
One of the many rooms in the museum.
It's got to have more than just one, right?
I mean, it's the Met, right? There's a little scene of a crowd running out of a movie theater because, the slime is attacking, ghosts are attacking, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this movie theater not showing The Blob? It's showing Cannibal Girls. And I just feel like it was such a missed opportunity. I also, as a kid, always loved the woman getting attacked by her mink coat when it, like, comes to life
Oh yeah,
from the slime, and then, like,
yeah.
the way it runs down the street.
That was a good one. I like that.
Mhm. There's a brief Ben Stein appearance. He
Mm-hmm.
is advising the mayor's advisor. I don't know. But they all just come in talking about, like, oh, there are ghosts everywhere. Then the mayor admits he spent time last night talking to a ghost. And I guess now we all believe in ghosts again, finally, for real.
Only took 90 minutes.
Yeah. Only took 90 minutes.
5 years later, 3 attacks in the city. Let's give him a chance,
Mhm.
guys.
Yeah, I was just trying to sell Dana on becoming his wife, and just all this horrible stuff is happening, and he's like, "Doesn't that sound nice?" Um, he also lists free parking as one of the perks to being the mother of a living god.
I mean, in New York City, you got to weigh those options.
You know what? Fair. I get it. Um, the Ghostbusters get let out of the asylum, I guess, because now the mayor believes in ghosts. It is extremely cheesy how they land on using the Statue of Liberty for their mission here. Something good, something decent, something pure. And then we play Love Keeps Lifting Me Higher as the flame bursts into a real flame.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in their defense, if you're trying to combat all the negativity of New Yorkers, that's like one thing that brings them together. It's like very like stereotypical New York, at least back then. I don't know how people view the Statue of Liberty now, but it made sense at least when I watched a bunch of times as a kid. And the rewatch, it didn't really. I mean, cheesy, yeah, sure, but it didn't really strike me as weird. Like, what else would they do to unite the city? It's like they needed all that positive energy, and what can they all
Mhm.
agree on as New Yorkers? You know,
Statue of Liberty.
oh, it's just a symbol of like their city, I guess.
It did actually make a lot of sense to me as a kid. Lewis also decides he's gonna help.
Hell yeah, he
Um,
is.
Again, great line from Lewis. He's suited up, he's got his pack, and he's running to catch the bus to go help fight the ghosts. And he says, "Stay fit, keep sharp, make good decisions." And I just feel like this is a very Lewis way of, like, thinking about how to save the world.
Hmm.
Um, the bus pulls up. Slimer is his bus driver. And Lewis decides, like, okay, I will do this, but I didn't know you had your license. He's a
Is he?
ghost.
Yeah, he's a ghost. Yeah.
It
It's
doesn't
very
make any
it's a very
sense.
Lewis line, yeah.
Hmm. Kind of surprised he would be okay with this considering what happened to him in the first movie, which again is something I hadn't thought about, as a kid watching this. I guess as a kid I just didn't know where Lewis came from. He was their lawyer friend
Who's now a Ghostbuster friend.
who's now, yeah, a
Yeah.
substitute Ghostbuster.
Well, when the
Um,
Ghostbusters are locked up, who are you gonna call? Your lawyer.
oh, there you go.
Hmm.
So the Ghostbusters are coming down some main street in New York City, inside the Statue of Liberty that's walking along the street. There are people just lining the streets, singing because they need positive energy to keep this walking Statue of Liberty going. Considering everything that's been going on, like, wouldn't there be a curfew in effect?
City doesn't sleep, man. No curfew.
Well, and they didn't believe in ghosts until like a few minutes ago. So
Yeah.
when the Ghostbusters finally burst into the art museum, they have the Statue of Liberty crash through this ceiling skylight with her torch. Dana stands there with the baby saying, Oscar, look! Again, not running.
Glass falling on them.
No.
The baby can't even move its head without assistance. Oscar, look. Makes
you,
him look.
he can walk. He can move
Oh
his
yeah, he just learned to walk. My bad. I forgot.
um Vigo is apparently having trouble getting out of the painting because of the positive energy and the singing and the Statue of Liberty. That always creeped me out, where you see him kind of like fading in and out of the painting and like moving strangely.
Yeah.
Um I think Vigo's face just creeped me out. And then there are
Yeah.
ways that it moves that is not right, and he doesn't always look like a real human, and that creeps me out.
Yeah,
Um
the Vigo actor, not on screen often, but presence felt when he is
mhm.
there for sure.
Yeah. Um Also creepy when, Ray gets possessed by Vigo, turns around and says, "There is no Ray, only Vigo," and like his face definitely doesn't look human. I don't know what that was supposed to be, but I don't like it.
Think maybe they. You think they possess Ray because out of the four, he's not the most. I think he's like I don't say nicest, but kind of like tender-hearted and maybe easy to see the good in people, so he's easy to be manipulated.
So I've wondered that too, but also maybe he just got his hooks in him when they were, you know, taking the photos earlier and
Yeah, good point.
already had an in or something because Ray got too close to the painting before.
Fair enough.
Although he didn't zap him in the eyeballs like he did to Janos, so I really don't know.
Hmm.
So in the end, they zap Vigo back into his painting and it explodes. Apparently then Janos is done being possessed because Vigo's gone. Um, Ray and Janos are just covered in slime telling each other that they love each other. um, One thing I've noticed at the very end of this, well, you see outside Lewis is also, trying to blast the shell of slime that's covering the museum, and he thinks he's done something because it
Mhm.
releases after they defeat Vigo. Um, you see, the crowd outside around him. The Statue of Liberty is just laying on the ground, like sideways, like on its side, laying on the ground.
Yeah,
Before
it
that,
fell
it was
over.
upright.
Yeah,
Right. So, am I supposed to assume that the Statue of Liberty fell over into a crowd of people? You can tell it's on its side, whereas before it was like upright because it
yeah,
had smashed the ceiling.
and
And I'm
walked.
just concerned about like a secondary disaster.
This is why we shouldn't watch movies from our childhood as adults, because I never thought about that. I just thought, well, it's not alive anymore. What's of course it's going to fall over, but never thought like, oh, it might have hurt a
Oh, so
building.
like the slime magic left it, so it just toppled?
Yeah,
Is that what you're thinking? Like it collapsed?
Yeah, it just is no. It's now back to being an
Yeah.
inanimate object, but I never thought of like collateral damage. I just thought, yeah, it's not alive anymore because they defeated the slime.
Yeah. No, there's so many people outside.
Yeah.
'Cause there was no, like, curfew or anything. Like I
Listen, everyone's
said,
everyone's okay.
most people are okay. But yeah, so we all believe in ghosts again, and everyone loves Ghostbusters again. But in 5 years, will they remember any of
Probably
this?
not. Nope.
Nope. Any other thoughts?
Um. Well, at least in comparison to Ghostbusters 1, I thought the effects department was a little bit better.
Yes.
We talked about the slime. We talked about the heads on spikes. Even just like the scene where they're fighting Vigo in the painting, and they have all these like stop motion. He looks all weird contorted. I thought that was really cool looking.
Mhm.
Um, we sort of touched base on Vinkman being kind of not the nicest person. He's kind of like a womanizer. Again, this is more reflected in the first movie, the beginning. He's a little cringe, like watching it modernly. It's like pump the brakes, pump the brakes a little bit there.
Yeah, there is a little bit of cringe with some of the things he says. I can agree with that.
Yeah,
But like I said, even as a kid, I felt like he was kinda icky.
I don't know if I thought that. I don't. I just remember like he was funny and like I knew who Bill Murray was probably because of Groundhog Day.
Mhm.
And I'll just it's Bill Murray is one of those things. Just it's Bill Murray. He's
Right,
already
yes.
famous in pop culture, even though you don't know why as a kid. He's just you know who Bill Murray is.
Yeah, I think I knew who Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd were as a
Yeah,
kid.
same. Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I had a really fun time rewatching this. This
good,
movie is ludicrous, but it felt like I was hanging out with old friends again. I
nice.
just it was just such this nice comfort to rewatch something that I was so familiar with and hadn't seen in such a long time. Because, like I said, I knew everything by heart. I knew every line that was coming up and the way it would be delivered. Um, I don't know where Ghostbusters 2 has been all these years, but I'm glad to have it back.
Just like the folks of New York City, you had forgotten about them.
I had.
Hmm.
Wow.
Weird.
These poor guys are so forgettable. Um,
Damn.
and I still think that Ghostbusters 2 is better than the first Ghostbusters.
Ooh.
Or at least I enjoy Ghostbusters 2 more.
Okay.
But
Fair.
I am obviously biased.
Right. Yeah, I think as a whole, I might like the second one better. The first one's a lot of setup, which is necessary, but I mean, the end, not just the marshmallow ending, but the end when they're dogs, it's pretty iconic. You talk about
That's true.
liners, one-liners. You get Rick Moranis looking for the gatekeeper. It's pretty good, but
Mhm.
I think overall, maybe this one does for me too as well. Kind of topple the first one. They took what they did in the first one and repeated it in a way that was slightly different. And I don't know. Like I said, the effects are better. I think the jokes are better. The pacing I felt was better. I mean, it's super quick though if you like think about it. I made the joke about 90 minutes, but like they forget about Ghostbusters, remember about Ghostbusters, lock them up, remember that they need them, save the day. But like the pacing and the beats are a little bit easier to come by. But yeah, I think it holds up.
Yeah, I
And
don't
some
know.
parts
This
didn't
is
age well,
just
but
I don't think anything from the 80s is really gonna age well. Um,
speak for yourself, Rachel.
except us. Welcome back to Back Through the Lens. Now we're going to discuss Joe's movie pick.
So for my repeat viewing from my childhood, I picked The Wizard of Oz, which was directed by Victor Fleming, released August 25th, 1939, rated G, and it was based on a 1900 children's book of the same name by L. Frank Baum. If you've never seen Wizard of Oz, Let me break it down for you. In an attempt to prevent her mean old neighbor from putting her dog down, Dorothy runs away from her aunt and uncle's farm. She gets caught in a storm, and that takes Dorothy further than she intended to go. Now, with the help of some new friends, she must find a way to get back to Kansas. So, I literally, well, according to legend, had watched this daily, twice, thrice times a day, so much when I was like a little kid, 1 or 2 years old. Again, according to my parents and my older sister, that like my dad had to like before I can like I barely was able to walk. He taught me how to like program the VCR so I could watch the movie myself whenever I wanted and stop like interrupting, everyone's life. I can't tell you why I loved this movie so much that young because I really don't even have the memory of watching it so often. As I got older, I watched it when it came on, cable. I think it's the Easter holiday or maybe Christmas. I always get them confused, but usually it's like once a year. TBS, TNT, they'll play Wizard of Oz for whatever reason. It's like a tradition. I want to say Easter because either way it doesn't make sense. But yeah, my parents is it's always they'll come up when we have a family gathering. We'll tell old stories and just like reminisce, and then it always comes up. Oh, I had to teach Joe how to use the VCR because he loved Wizard of Oz so damn much. I couldn't explain why though.
I really like though that you have a story like this about your movie pick, whereas my movie pick was just this is what TNT or TBS was showing me, and so I latched onto it.
So I wouldn't even know like even through the stories. I don't remember first story like when's the first time I would have seen it and why. Maybe on
Mhm.
TV. I'm pretty sure my grandma might have had it, and maybe just it makes sense for a kid that young. Usually, like my niece and nephew growing up, they love all the Disney movies or anything that has musical numbers, right? Like the singing and dancing, and that's a lot in Wizard of Oz. Um, Maybe the bright colors. We'll get into that in a little bit. This is probably very a lot of eye candy, so to speak, for a young child who's just learning to see colors. I guess. I don't know. No explanation. I just loved it apparently so much I had to watch it over and over and over and over and over and over again. And
I
it's
would
now
love I'm sorry. I would
no,
love
you're
if your
fine.
reasoning for this being like what you watched all the time as a kid was because you just happened to catch it as you were able to develop a sense of identifying colors. And like that was the reason. It was just like the Technicolor hit your little baby brain.
Maybe I took an eye test once. Well, lots of times I have glasses, but I took a color test. I have a lot of guy friends that are colorblind, and it actually resulted in I had more cones and I was able to see like more shades of color better. So I don't know. Maybe that was the thing.
Maybe Wizard of Oz hits really hard for you, more so than other people.
That's why I don't need a drop acid. I just watch Wizard of Oz and all the colors just come off the screen.
There you go.
I don't know what are we talking about anymore. Who knows? How about
Who
what's your
knows?
experience with Wizard of Oz?
Okay, so I know that I saw this as a kid. Um, I really can't remember a time I wasn't aware of this movie or the story in general. But I wouldn't say it was a big part of my childhood at all. um, I watched it more as like a film student in college, honestly, than I ever did
Yeah,
as a kid. For you know the reasons we just mentioned, like Technicolor and whatnot. Um, I have to admit that it is, like, not my favorite movie, and I'm so sorry. Um, but
I didn't make it, so I'm not offended.
yeah, um, I don't know, I feel like it almost doesn't even feel like a movie to me because it just looms so large in pop culture, but that is also
Mm.
why I feel bad saying that I don't necessarily love it
There's a
because
lot of popular movies I probably don't like too.
I mean, yes, we to be fair, we probably all have our outliers that we just don't get. But for me, this is one of them, unfortunately. Um, I can totally appreciate technically why it is such an advancement. And I can appreciate why it's still so popular and why it's enduring. It just never really piqued my interest as a kid.
Yeah. I watched it so much too, like it became almost ingrained in my DNA and my personality. I have a couple like posters in my den. It's like someone's like identifies that with me, like they would Ninja Turtles or Batman, just like things from our childhood that we still kind of like as almost 40-year-olds. And it's just like that's a I want to say it's part of my personality, but like people associate that with me because of the history I have with the film.
Mhm.
And learning about it in film school made me kind of like it's for a while, and most people probably do this when they're like teenagers. We kind of like shed our childhood stuff. Like I got rid of a lot of action figures to my nieces and nephews, and I kind of wish I had them back. And it's like we were trying to self-identify as an adult now, and it's like no, now I'm almost 40. Like nah, I'm a big giant child, and I'm watching Ninja Turtles and Batman cartoons and reliving the first movie I have any semblance of a memory of. Um, but
Yeah.
uh, singing, dancing. I always remember as a kid when I started having more like active memories, like older child, not 1 or 2 years old, like maybe like 6, 7, 8. Like the Scarecrow, I remember was like one of my favorite characters because he's just so goofy. It's kind of like almost like slapsticky how he moves, very physical
Yeah.
comedy. So I mean, I could kind of see why I loved it so much as a kid.
No, I totally see why a kid would latch onto this, absolutely. Um, I don't know, it just wasn't one that held my interest, I guess. But again, I feel like it's one of those stories that I feel like, do I even need to watch this movie because it's just such this I don't know. It's just this everyone knows the story of The Wizard of Oz, even if they couldn't tell you that they literally sat down and watched the movie.
That's probably true. Well, I'm glad you love it so much. We're about to talk about it for an hour.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, so let's move through the movie. Start out, and I want to when I rewatched it for the episode, I forgot, and maybe I probably always forget until I watch it again, which is less and less as an adult because I watched it so damn much as a child. I forget how much time is spent in the beginning on the farm. It's a lot more than I always anticipate.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that because when I was rewatching it, I thought the black and white at the beginning was very brief, and it turned
Yeah,
out it was not at all. Um, it actually made me think that anytime that I was shown the movie in school, I'm fairly certain they fast forward to the part where it gets into color
yeah,
because I remembered so little of this opening.
yeah,
Everything about the opening that was in black and white, it felt like a new part of the movie to me almost. So
yeah.
I am willing to bet that anytime I watched it where it was like at school at someone else's house that they had fast forwarded to get to the quote unquote good part that's in color.
Yeah, it's definitely the more memorable part. It's where most of the musical numbers happen, all the silly characters and evil characters. But with the farm, the opening several sequences, like you get a lot of quick information that's kind of important if you're not just a kid and not paying attention. Like, so obviously the choice of using black and white versus color, the dull life of being on a Kansas farm for, at least in the point of view of a teenage girl. You get introduced to the farm hands, which they'll come back later. We'll see them again later. Um, and then we have to get their neighbor, Elmira Gulch. What a horrible name! And how can you
Yeah.
not be? You're the villain of a story, right? Like with a name like Gulch.
Gulch. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm clearing my throat when I'm sick or something. Uh, and so she enters the scene with yelling about Toto wanting apparently bit her on the ankle, and she's gonna either sue the farm to foreclose them, or they give up the dog and she takes it, presumably to put it down. Those are the terms. That's it. That's what we got. Um, yeah, then like when she leaves, like Uncle Henry like finally speaks up and just like talks some shit as she like walks out the door, which is kind of funny, but it's like kind of sad at the same time.
Yeah, I did really like the way that they insult people in older movies, particularly Dorothy's aunt says she's thinking something mean about Elmira Gulch, and she says, "Being a Christian woman, I can't say it."
Right.
And just old movies. I don't know.
Well,
But
it's I don't think they could say anything mean anyways, being rated G in a based off a child's book. But what I love about that line, to kind of emphasize your point, is like it leaves it to the imagination. Like, what did she say?
that's fair.
And it's kind of like you could just fill in the blank, and it's probably worse than what she was going to say, anyways.
Fair enough. Um, I did obviously appreciate the story setup and callbacks and things that happen in the black and white parts more as an adult.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, like we said, as a kid, I'm sure everyone just wanted to get to the good part, so to speak. And um, I would like to just point out that one of the farm hands is eating his cruller with his farm gloves on, and it really bothered me.
You know, they didn't have to worry about hand sanitizer back then.
I mean, apparently not. I mean,
God made dirt, dirt don't hurt.
okay. Um, I did want to point out that I think, again, like she sings Somewhere Over the Rainbow in
Hmm.
this beginning part, this black and white part, and it's so I wish I could explain what I'm feeling with this because I just think of it as so iconic, such a huge part of pop culture to then think, "Oh, this is the movie that started that. This is its introduction into the culture." And then it's also funny to me to think that, this is such an enduring song and such a that song probably means a lot to a lot of people. And when I was in school, we apparently fast forwarded it to get to the color part.
Right. Yeah.
So that was a little funny to me too, that it's again, I feel like I almost cannot critique this movie like I would something else because it just has become such a part of the culture. There's so many things that parts of it that are bigger than the movie and live on
Hmm.
beyond the movie, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you guys would fast forward that because it's kind of I don't know if I want to say foreshadowing, but yeah, I mean, you see the farm hands, you see the neighbor that's gonna be the witch. Spoiler alert. Um,
Yeah.
and she sings about wanting to be somewhere else over the rainbow. So it's kind of funny you guys fast forward that, and and then like when I'm watching it this last time, again I forget how much black and white there is. I'm like, okay, well then the storm's gonna come. The storm doesn't come, not yet. We still have like more exposition to get through. She runs away. She cries on her bed and she's like, "Oh, what a terrible world!" And then Toto escapes the mean neighbor and runs back home. And Dorothy's like, "All right, we got to go." And then runs into this traveling swindler known as Professor Marvel, and he claims he could, see into the past, present, and future in his little crystal ball. And obviously, this is going to be the wizard, who might also be a swindler. When I was little, I used to think he actually could see into the ball, so he got me.
This was a part that I did not remember at all.
He fast forwarded it.
Well, right, I fast forwarded it, but even like I said, rewatching it for film classes and whatnot, I didn't remember this part at all. Which shows you how just unfamiliar I am with the movie as a whole. But it's hard for that not to hit different living in the year we live in with the whole Marvel universe. And
Right.
it's impossible for that not to have a different connotation now that Dorothy is like has somehow found herself in the middle of a superhero movie.
I mean, And if we want to get too crazy with this and get off track a little bit, but maybe when she goes over the rainbow into Oz and meets her friends, she is assembling her Avengers.
Oh wow. I
It's a
mean,
stretch.
you could argue that if that is what you would like to do.
They took down an evil tyrant.
I mean, fair.
Anyway, one can dream. So Marvel tells her that her aunt is like dying of heartbreak because Dorothy ran away or something like that, and so she's like, "All right, change your heart. I'm going back home." And this when the tornado hits, the twister happens, and she can't get in the storm cellar. She's locked out because she ran away. So that's what she gets, I guess. Runs to the house for cover because where else are you going to go? And gets bopped in the head, and the house gets picked up by the tornado. She wakes up, or does she? During this house flight, and just sees random chickens and whatnot, and her fun neighbor on her bike. How far away is her neighbor's house? Like, she's still bicycling through a tornado.
Hmm.
But she turns into the witch, like in front of Dorothy's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we finally get to Rachel's favorite part, the color. Lands in Oz, and like, that opening when the door opens, though, that's you're right. That's literally like you see just a commercial for Wizard of Oz. That's if they show you 2 seconds, it's that where the door
Yeah.
opens up and you see all the color. If you talk about it for 2 seconds in a film class, that's what you're probably going to talk about.
Yep.
Um,
Completely iconic.
and the funny thing is, earlier you mentioned like it's the movie's technological advances. Technicolor existed already. It's I think for like a few years, if not longer. But it's just I think how they did it in this film made it seem like I thought this for years that they invented Technicolor because it's just how vibrant and saturated it was. They just I think they did a great job. I think maybe they've amped up the color a little bit, but that juxtaposition with the farm scenes, the black and white, it just transports you to another world.
Yeah, I do think you're right, in terms of it being, for whatever reason, the de facto illustration of Technicolor, because all I could think about when she opens the door into the world of color is that in every film class I've ever taken, in every textbook, this is always the example of Technicolor. This is always
Hmm.
what you have to watch when you start talking about Technicolor. Um, so just for me, as someone who has gone through film school, this obviously has a different meaning. It has like a very academic meaning to me. This seems to be held as, I don't know, the gold standard or
Yeah.
something.
So while Dorothy is walking around in this new land, we get introduced to Glinda, who arrives via Bubblegum Bubble. She's like this little pink princess. Well, so how I viewed her as a child.
So again, it's really hard for me to not think about the musical Wicked because
Hmm.
that came out, I would say, when we were in high school, college, and it's just again, this story looms so large. There are so many pop culture references that it's so hard to just think about The Wizard of Oz the movie in a vacuum or its own,
Yeah.
piece of art. So really all I could think of when she first showed up was Glinda from Wicked, the musical.
Yeah.
Um, but it is so it is funny to hear her describe everything that went on between her and the bad witch that Dorothy has killed. And
Killed, house manslaughter, whatever.
yeah, that is one thing actually that stood out to me watching this again, especially because I was watching it with my son. He loved it, by the way. He thought this was so much fun. He really had a great time watching it. He's 8, just FYI. But some of these lyrics, I understand it's good versus evil. I understand it's supposed to be okay the bad guy died because they're the bad guy. I
Right.
understand all of this. But there's this line where they say, "You've killed her so completely," and it
Yeah.
just seems really harsh.
Well, when a house falls on you, there's no other way to have been killed. Like, I would not want to be uncompletely killed when a house falls on me. Please, like, if a house falls on me, let it be completely.
I mean, okay, fair. But it's just one of those things that it hit different watching it with a kid, like, okay, it's all right to say something like this because she was evil and bad, but goodness gracious, that was harsh. To that same train of thought, when the Lollipop Guild starts to sing and they, like, sing out the sides of their mouths, that always annoyed me so much, and it
Yeah.
still annoys me.
Were they supposed to, like,
Just no
have, like, a lollipop in their mouth? I don't even, like Popeye almost with his pipe?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. It made me think of Popeye, but it just I don't know. Open your mouth all the way. I don't know what to say.
Well, they also had to, like, kind of make Dorothy feel not so bad for accidentally committing manslaughter. Like,
That
they're like, "No, it's
yes.
cool, Dorothy, it's cool. You actually just saved an entire realm. I know you probably feel really bad. This is a stranger to you, and we all could be lying. We could be the bad people. You don't have no idea. But thanks for killing her completely."
And yes, it does absolutely set up Dorothy as our hero, however, accidentally that has started.
And then, well, speaking of Wicked, big old puff of smoke comes up, and there's the Wicked Witch of the West in all her green glory. And all she wants is her sister's shoes, and she presumably will be on her merry way. But then I think it's your favorite part of the movie when the shoes disappear.
Yeah, when the ruby slippers are removed from the Wicked Witch of the East and her feet and legs curl up and then disappear under the house, the curling always creeped me out. And as an adult, still creeps me out. So that hasn't changed.
Rachel loves a good body horror movie.
I don't like it when people's bodies move in ways they're not supposed to.
And for those who've never seen this movie, what she's talking about is the house is on the Wicked Witch of the East's body, but her legs stick out. You see stockings and these red shoes, and they curl against the shin, like almost like how a bird's leg would bend, only it coils and curls. It is it is kind of weird, and it's kind of scary as if you're a child or someone who doesn't like bodies moving in ways they shouldn't be moving.
It curls the wrong way.
Legs shouldn't curl, period. But that happens right when Wicked Witch of the West reaches for the shoes. They disappear and somehow end up on Dorothy's feet. I think there's some sabotagery here. I think Glinda
Mhm.
is setting up Dorothy because for some reason she can't do anything by herself. I do want to make a quick note talking about these ruby slippers. In the book, they are actually silver, but I'm fairly confident MGM switched them to ruby so they could trademark them, and then now they're in a Smithsonian, I believe.
Mhm. They are. I've actually seen them in the Smithsonian.
It's pretty
Um,
sweet.
they might have also changed them to red so they could capitalize on that sweet, sweet Technicolor.
I was gonna say something very similar, so we're on the
Yeah.
same page there. So Dorothy has new ruby slippers, and they're protected by some sort of witch magic because Wicked Witch of the West cannot remove them. She does some idle threats and disappears, and Glinda's like, "Yeah, she can't hurt you. The shoes will protect you." P.S. Take them shoes far, far away to Emerald City because I can't help you here, or can she? Who knows? I don't trust Glinda. As an adult, rewatching this, very suspect. But we'll get back to
Mhm.
that. So here's some shoes after this that literally a dead woman was just wearing. That's I don't know what the emotional impact of that is, but now she's wearing a dead woman's shoes that fit her perfectly, and we are going for a lovely stroll through Oz,
Like
um,
you do.
like you do.
It's always really funny to me that when she starts her journey on the yellow brick road, there's this tight loop where the yellow brick road
Mm,
starts in
yeah,
Munchkinland, and she walks this little loop. She doesn't just step onto the main part of the road. She has
I
to
like
walk the
walk on an
little loop,
angle.
and for some reason this bothers me so much. Obviously I have problems with this movie.
They're the
Um
worst.
sorry, but I agree with you that watching this back, I felt Glinda was kinda sus in a way
Hmm.
that I don't remember feeling when I
Well,
was watching it
yeah,
earlier.
yeah. As a younger person, they clearly with makeup and costuming, like as I said, one looks like a bubblegum princess,
Mhm.
and talks in this high pitched, soft, welcoming voice. The other one's wearing all black, is very bright green, and but she did make some threats, so she does have a little bit of a mean side to her. But like clearly, like we're painting a picture here.
Mhm.
Um, I do remember as a kid, for some reason, I liked that scene where she's walking around in a circle. I just thought like I don't know, it was mesmerizing. But then as an adult, I'm like, I get you have to walk on this road, but can you just cut across, like get
Right.
going? It's like when I leave for work in the morning, I have a little sidewalk, but my car is further down the driveway. I just walk across the lawn and get to my car.
Mhm.
Save
Yeah,
yourself
I think
the
that's
5 minutes, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, I think that's what it is, like, as a grown up, I'm like, "Just get on with it."
Yeah, right. It's just to hammer in the fact that that's the road she has to be on. That's the road that's going to take her to salvation. So let's
Of
just
course.
hammer that home a little bit. She's walking around in a spiral. She's on this road. All of Munchkinland waves her goodbye and farewell. She's on the main road, and we're going to zip past some plot points here. But essentially, she meets a bunch of new friends that all need or want to join her and need to join her to go see the wizards. They all want something. She runs into a scarecrow that needs a brain, a tin woodsman that would like a heart. This was stolen from him. In the book, he like was in love and that didn't pan it the way he wanted to pan out. Then a lion who wants to be brave because he's supposed to be the king of the jungle, and he's just a big old little kitty cat. And so they all meet up and it's fun. Every new member has their own song, which, as I said earlier, I do really remember being like enthralled with the scarecrow coming off his little perch and being all whimsical and very silly. Um, one of the scarier scenes happen, at least again, trying to picture it when I was a kid, where they go through the woods and they're hungry and they go to pick an apple and the trees are alive and they're throwing apples at them.
Yeah, I actually this is another scene I didn't remember, but yeah, I could see how that would be kind of frightening for a little
Hmm.
kid. But you're right with the with each introduction of the characters, my son thought it was so fun and magical the way one of them would suddenly appear or suddenly come to life. So again, I understand how enchanting this would be as a little kid.
Yeah, the apple scene was kind of just the whole in the woods part. They did a good job making it dark and dismal. And also, shortly after the trees throw apples at them, the witch pops back up because she's clearly keeping tabs on them, and again makes threats and in fact throws fire at our very flammable friend, the Scarecrow.
I legitimately was scared for the scarecrow because he is very flammable.
He
And again, I
is.
didn't remember this part.
They get to the Emerald City quicker than I like thought watching it as an adult and as a kid. I feel like this journey took them forever meeting all these people, but they get there pretty quick. They see in the distance across this field to which the Wicked Witch of the West like sees them in their crystal ball, if I remember correctly, and like just keeps saying the word poppies over and over again. So I don't know if she grew them then and there. It's as a kid, I think that's what I felt like. She just magically made them grow because then they end up stopping the ones with you know the mammals, the ones with that can breathe oxygen. The poppies made them fall asleep. Um,
She stopped the mammals.
Yeah, well, the Tin Ones and Scarecrow are not mammals. They don't need oxygen to move. I don't know. What else? How else am I going to
I
describe
mean,
that?
that's fair. I mean, I guess that's
She stopped the
true.
ones
I
with
don't.
a respiratory system.
Okay. Okay.
But there's a
She stopped the ones who could be real live creatures.
right. But as an adult, I realized the point of this. Um, as a kid, I don't remember why I thought the two of them were okay and the other ones weren't. They got really
Uh-huh.
sleepy. It's funny as an adult. A few things here. I love the use of poppies because the color red. As we talked about the ruby slippers and the Technicolor and all the saturation of color, it just a scene that literally pops off the screen. Um, Poppies are also used to make opioids, and that makes you sleepy. So this is, I guess, technically my first encounter with on-screen drug use. I don't, I don't know if I want to call it that, but um, there's that. And then I did a minor research for this episode, and this movie comes out right before or during World War II. And
Wait, when
during
did
World
it
War
come out?
39, so right before America entered the war.
Yeah.
Um, but in World War One, over in England, where the trenches were, or like and people got shot and died, and their blood seeped into the ground. Following seasons, red poppies would grow.
Watching this as an adult, like I am aware that poppies are um used for World War One remembrance, and they also seem to be more common to remember veterans in the UK, maybe. I
Yeah,
could be wrong about that.
yeah. Then they get saved by Glinda, who makes it snow, and I guess that kind of dampers the effect of the pollen. I don't know. They
Mhm.
wake up.
Mhm.
They wake up. Tin
Sure.
Man's rusty. They oil him up. Continue on their way.
I thought you said my man is rusty, like the Tin Man's your boy.
No, that Scarecrow's my boy.
Um
My man's rusty. They get to the door. They get to the goddamn door. They get to Emerald City. They knock on the door. Uh, they get rejected, and then they're like, "Oh no, we're here to see the wizard. Look, I got cool shoes. Oh, well, come on in."
Yeah, my only notes here are the song that the lion sings before they met the wizard is really annoying to me personally.
Yeah, that
Um,
was not my favorite either. I don't
yeah,
know what it's just. Mm.
the making his throat vibrate.
Oh yeah,
I and also I thought it was ridiculous that they broke a flower pot to make him a crown. Like they just keep come into this place and like destroy it for their
and they
song.
were shown so much hospitality. Like they got pampered and they had a spa day. In fact, he
Yeah,
has a bow in his hair. Why couldn't he just ask for a crown?
there you go. And I
Yeah,
mean, I'm just saying they're supposed to be the good guys and they're breaking things.
right. One of my favorite scenes as a kid, though, was the very on point line of a horse of a different color, and then they get drawn by a carriage to their spa day, and they're
I did like
literally
that, yes.
different colored horses, which I researched to see how they did that back then. And
Mhm.
for animal safety, they weren't allowed to put dye, but it was all like colored gelatin. So, like Jello, your favorite Jello flavored
I
pack.
thought you were gonna say gelatin. Isn't gelatin made from horse hooves?
Oh, snap. Moving on. That's creepy.
Yeah.
Well, apparently the dye was bad for the horses, so they put um,
They
horse
put
powder on
horses
them.
on the horse. Well, anyway.
Oh, we're never gonna air this. So he sings a stupid song that Rachel loves. He does the song and dance. They get to see the wizard. They have an appointment. Um, and it's this big floating, terrifying head that's raining like hell and brimstone and scaring the bejesus out of everybody.
Again, this is showing my age, I think, but Oz reminds me of the boss in Power Rangers. Do you know what you're
Yes. So what you're trying to say is that Dorothy and her friends are the Power Rangers, and this is Zordon.
I mean, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying all I could think of was the Power Rangers.
Yeah, which would make the Wicked Witch of the West Rita.
I mean, look, I don't know.
Oh my god.
Sure. Do you think the Power Rangers was a ripoff of the Wizard of Oz?
So were the Avengers apparently.
Dang. Okay.
Dang. See how
Um,
popular this movie is and what it did for other things?
yeah, see? The reverberations throughout pop culture. What was I saying? Um, but no, it's very funny to me that like the lion is so scared of him because, to me it looks so silly, but
Silly, yeah. The fire is the more impressive part, I thought, and here the tonality of the film visually also changes from this point forward. Becomes kind of darker, more grim. Still very saturated, but a lot less colors are being used. Um, but yeah, he gets scared from this floating head, the lion, who wants to be brave.
Mhm.
So much so that he exits stage left via jumping out of a window. He's just like, I'm out this bitch. What like everyone else's reaction? Like they're like, we'll meet you down there, I guess. Wait for us. I'm not jumping out of a window.
Yeah, that seemed like a bit much, but he's the cowardly lion, right? They had to hammer that home. So,
Yeah, I'd be afraid of jumping out of a window. I don't know what story that room is on, but
that's a really good point. Yeah.
it's still going through a big ass window.
Yeah, his cowardness is very selective, I guess.
Hmm. But
He could have just run away
he could have. Well, he did. He just
through the
shows it.
window.
Yeah, a quicker way to get out of the castle slash city, I guess.
Yep.
Um, but the rest of them also leave, not just to find their glass laden friend, but they have a new a new task. They have these requests for the wizard, and he's like, "I got you. Do me one solid. Go kill this other person. Go kill this witch and bring me back a proof that you did her broom." So we have a murder plot now. Um,
Did we not already?
well, there was an accidental. I dropped a house on you and killed you oh so
Mm-mm.
completely. This is very he's like, go kill her.
Yeah, yeah.
Complete, presumably completely. Also, I don't know.
He's like, do that again, but on purpose.
Right, and bring me evidence of your murder. Um, yeah, that's a little dark.
So this is something that stood out to me though, watching this as a grown up. I can't help but feel like these people who are, I don't know, let's call them leaders in this world, like
Yeah.
Glinda and the wizard, they're just having this random girl who knows nothing about their world doing all their dirty work. What were
Hmm.
they all doing before this? Were they ever trying to defeat these bad witches before this? What was going on before Dorothy showed up?
Probably a lot of the same. Maybe a lot of failed attempts.
I guess. I mean, it did seem like the one really terrorized the Munchkins, right?
Yeah. Maybe there was like some sort of balance of power, and the house that fell helped shift that, and then they're like, "Oh, we got to take out the other one." Oz
Sure.
politics. I don't know.
No, sure. But I guess my issue with this is that this very young girl
Hmm.
knows nothing about their world, knows nothing about, like, as we see, knows nothing about how to kill witches or how any of this works. She doesn't know how to defend herself against witches, whatever. And they're just sending this very naive, unprepared, untrained person to go fight the bad guys.
Yep.
And the bad guys have magical powers, and she has like a dog.
Yep.
Okay.
and some cool shoes.
Oh, that's fair. Okay,
Yeah.
she has that going for her. It just seems generally like poor planning on everyone else's part.
Listen, if you think this is rough, you should read the book because it is a little more extreme.
Maybe I will.
Yeah, they during the part where they're like going to the Emerald City, they get attacked by a lot of things, including like a swarm of bees and some other weird like
Mm.
Oz creatures. And I think at one point the Tin Man literally takes his axe and kills a bunch of creatures, like chops them all up.
Gosh, okay. I
Yeah,
can see why that part didn't make it into the movie.
yeah, right. So
Okay.
uh, onward west, I believe, which would make I'm assuming because that's where the Wicked Witch lives. To go kill her, they have to go travel west, and we cut back to the witch who has already like written a threatening note in the sky when they were in Oz. So she's like again keeping tabs on this foursome, fivesome if you want to include the dog. So now she knows they're coming after her, and she's like, "All right, I got this." And she sends the flying monkeys to go kidnap them. Why couldn't we have done this a long time ago, Miss Wicked Witch of the West? Like from jump, she has
Mm-hmm.
an army of these things to come pick them up, and now we wait till they're literally heading to you. You
Yes.
just wait. They either could have done this earlier or just waited out. Now it seems
Mm-hmm.
a weird time. But this is another scary scene when I was a kid. It's just like dark. Now we're in the forest and all the trees. I think fall had happened. It seemed like because there's no leaves anywhere. It's just these mangled pre Tim Burton looking trees. There's it's the setting is dark. It's at night. Everything's creepy and in shadow. And the monkeys are funny looking, but also kind of creepy, and weird.
Yeah, I think everyone has a story about being terrorized by the flying monkeys when they were a kid.
Mm,
Uh, I remember when Greg was around 3, we were talking to some neighbors about we were gonna have a movie night. We were gonna watch Wizard of Oz. He had never seen it, and everyone was shocked that we were letting him watch it at 3 years old because they thought the flying monkeys were gonna be too scary for him.
yeah,
Um, he was fine with
yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, the monkeys themselves are ish scary, but like when they go to kidnap Dorothy, their actions are a little scary. They like pounce and tear apart the scarecrow, and
No, they're freaky. I don't like their faces.
yeah, they're
I
mean,
get
very
it.
mean. Um,
Um, I just want to point out that as our group of good guys heads to the witch's house, they brought a net and a mallet.
yeah, very
What
Looney
did
Tunes
they
like.
Yeah, what did they think was going to happen
Well, they're out
here?
of houses.
That's good.
Thank you. Uh, yeah, I really don't know the choice in those props, but it's that as a kid, I don't even think I thought twice about it. It's just like they have something uh, in a rewatch. I'm like, yeah, this is a little silly. It's a little Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, I think I was just so stuck on the idea that they were, sending this group of people, I guess, for lack of a better word, to like kill this witch when they have nothing to defend themselves and they don't know what they're doing and they're like, I have a net. Like, I don't know. The witch has magic powers and flying monkeys.
Yeah, I guess.
I just
uh, I think that I personally, now we're talking about it, I think the better question is where did they get this mallet and net?
I don't know, the
Is
wizard's
it a
house.
parting as a parting gift from Emerald City?
They were like, here, you might as well take something to at least try to defend yourselves.
Yeah, in case you need to pound in some metal stakes or catch butterflies on your journey, here you go.
Hmm. um, I have a quote from one of them that says, they took my chest out and threw it over there,
Yep.
which sounds terrifying.
Yeah. Well, you're made of straw, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
Was
that
that
was kind of that was the
that
point I
was
was making. It's like they were literally ripping the friends apart, jumping on them. That to me was more scary than the physical look of the flying monkeys, even though they are kind of creepy, but they were pretty
Yeah,
vicious.
I get that.
Um,
Um,
but after they get themselves back together, being the instant best friends that they are, decide to go save Dorothy. And
mhm.
post high school Joe watching this for the episode, I was getting a lot of like Lord of the Rings Mountain Doom vibes in this next couple of scenes where they're climbing up the mountain, and it just seems like they're just exacerbated, and they're trying to throw, well, they're not throwing anything into a volcano, but it just reminded me of Frodo and Sam's making their endless climb.
Well, first of all, I thought you were about to say Mountain Dew, so that's one
Mountain
thing.
Dew. Mountain Dew and my boy's Rusty.
Um, yeah, I don't have anything else to.
Uh,
Um, I just feel like when we, see Dorothy trying to protect Toto from the Wicked Witch, and she's trying to negotiate, and she's still just negotiating about her dog, and I don't know. She's just, oh, can I have my dog back though? And it just all seems very silly. And then the witches throw their, or I'm sorry, the witch guards throw their stakes at the dog like very lamely. Like it's very obvious that these
oh
aren't
yeah,
real weapons and they're just like
yeah,
a very lackluster attempt to spear a tiny dog.
yeah. Well, it's all for show, as we'll see here in a little bit. What I think now, it's all for show. She has all these guards, and they're chasing
Hmm.
them around. But yeah, to your point, they're just throwing their spears very ineffectively at this tiny dog. Um,
Yeah.
but also, like, I don't know, if I was in a strange land and all I had really to remind me of home was my dog, I'd feel the same way.
No, I agree. I would also be bartering for my dog. She just sounds very lame doing it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I I just feel like she just got thrown into this bizarre power struggle in a land she is not familiar with, and she's like, "Can I just have my dog back?"
yeah, she's over it. She's done. She wants a dog. She wants to take her ball and go home.
I mean, I don't blame her.
No.
I would want to
Um,
just go home.
yeah. And then, after they lamely throw spears, it's a Benny Hill moment where they're running around the castle trying to chase them,
Hmm.
and they corner him. And then again, poor Mr. Scarecrow catches on fire,
Yeah.
and Dorothy, being the kind-hearted soul that she is, just wants to put her friend out, and there just happens to be a bucket of water in arm shot, or in arm's reach. And the Wicked Witch of the West is presumably an innocent bystander of water splashing.
That's all it takes.
That's all it takes. Or a house.
Yeah. This bothered me so much. Okay. There's just conveniently a bucket of water right next to Dorothy when the scarecrow catches on fire. Random bucket of water, okay? It is also conveniently the one thing that is deadly to this witch.
Yes.
It's too easy. And
Yeah.
also, why would the witch, I assume she knows that water is bad for her, have this bucket of water lying around her castle?
I have no answer to that.
Yeah.
She also like lives with a bunch of henchmen that all kind of look like her. I don't know if like people in the West just are green skinned. I don't. They didn't explain that. They look like they all could be like her cousins or something. I don't know. Um, but so that proves,
Um,
this is kind of my theory here though, is the second she melts and Dorothy's like all apologetic, like, I didn't know, I'm so sorry. And they all just like throw their weapons aside and kneel, like, you saved us.
yeah, they're totally
So
fine with it.
yeah, 'cause she must have been that bad. But like her and her sister, the second they disappear, everyone's like, oh, thank God.
Mhm.
Um,
No, I don't know, the suspension of disbelief that she accidentally wandered into this world and accidentally killed these two tyrants that have been terrorizing this world for goodness knows how long.
Right. Yeah. Well, it is a children's book, so calm down over there. Listen, we want to start talking about giant marshmallows and people turning into dogs. That's okay, but
I mean, maybe you have me there.
not saying I don't like Ghostbusters 1 or 2. I'm just let's we're not you don't have to love every movie I pick and vice versa, but movies are in a sense like suspending disbelief. Some more than others, I'll give you that.
Sure. Look, I appreciate this movie. I just think this was way too easy
Hmm.
if you really think about it hard enough, like we did because we were taking notes for a podcast.
Yes, correct.
And it's really very black and white, good versus bad. Like, Dorothy is good, so she cannot fail, even though she has no idea what she's actually doing. I guess the simplicity of that does not, there's nothing like compelling there for me as a story. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
one can argue it's the innocence of a child that maybe she doesn't know what's going on, which she doesn't, but a child's innocence might be kind of a through line here.
I mean, sure. She doesn't look
Yeah,
that young here, though.
so I think she was in her teens.
I mean, yeah, I would agree with that.
Um,
I wouldn't exactly say child.
well, yeah, and in the book, I think she's actually much younger, like
No.
8 to 10. I don't
Oh,
remember.
that actually makes a lot more sense.
Um, so
Um,
yeah, Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, Part 2,
mhm.
and we get her broom and we take her back to Oz, which now like in the review of this movie, forgot how much there was in the farm in the beginning, and then they do all the singing, dancing, getting to Emerald City, and it's like the end of the movie. It's like, oh yeah, all these other things happen after the witch dies. Like it's not just like roll credits. We have this we we have
I know
we
I
have
had that thought too because I just was like, "Oh, it's over now." Like, I don't know. I don't
yeah,
remember this movie.
right. Well, yeah, we have to have proof of death, right? So we take them the broom to the floating head of Zoran, and it's like, hey, look, we did this thing. Can we have our gifts? And he's like, no. And says a bunch of stuff, and no one's paying attention. I actually don't remember what he's saying because it's hard to pay attention because the whole point is Toto sees that there is an actual person controlling all the pyro and whatnot. And he's just this mindless old man.
Yep. Yeah, Toto does a lot in this movie.
He's the real MVP.
Yeah, really. Something again I did not realize until I rewatched it for this.
To your point, Toto does all the heavy lifting.
Mhm.
He kind of both like physically in the movie, but also kind of as a plot device,
Mhm.
reveals the crazy old man that is the wizard, and now all of a sudden he's got this different attitude and he's friendly, and they're like, "Hey, we want our things we've asked for." He gives them a bunch of trinkets out of a pillowcase.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So my question,
yeah.
1, where did the wizard come from? 2, why does he have all these random objects lying around so conveniently? Good thing
I,
the 3 of them had all these things all along since this guy isn't really magic.
yes, yes. Where you came from, I don't know. I think it
Kansas as
was,
well.
yeah, or like somewhere in Dorothy's world, via hot air balloon. He's not a good pilot, I guess.
Mhm.
Crashes into Oz, and the people there take him for a wizard because he showed up in a hot air balloon, and they clearly don't know what that is. They,
Yeah, that's
but
what I gathered too. They thought the hot air balloon was
magic.
meant something, yeah.
Yeah, they live in a different world, so they don't know the things we know. So they have magic, we have science, and they assumed his science was magic.
Fair enough.
Um, so I think the things that he has lying around in his pillowcase, I just think they were objects from his world. Like that, like he's a wizard, and this is the same guy who played the Professor Marvel. So maybe this wizard is it actually is like a professor or some like something in the real world, and that maybe what he gave to the Scarecrow was like his PhD. Like he just like had it on him for some reason. He gave it to him. Uh,
Took his PhD on his hot air balloon ride that he
sometimes you
never
gotta
returned from.
sometimes you have to prove you're a wizard, man. You gotta prove your worth, I guess. Which is what all the friends did in this movie. They had it all along.
Like I said, good thing they did have it all along
Yeah.
because this man is not providing them with anything.
He gives him his diploma. He gives the Tin Man what looks like an alarm clock on a chain. Which I don't know why your alarm clock is shaped like a heart, but you know. And what's a lion get? Oh, a Medal of Honor. So maybe the wizard's also a war veteran. No, you're not buying any of this, huh? No. God. This is the time in the episode where I accidentally kill Rachel.
I mean,
We'll be
so
right
far
back.
you're like, so far it's been every movie. You're like 2 for 2.
Nothing is in his pillowcase for Dorothy. She's like, "Oh, what about me? I did all the damn dirty work. I literally killed the witch." And he's like,
Mhm.
"Well, uh, I forgot to mention I have a hot air balloon. I can take you home to Kansas." Which, by the way, I would. She doesn't know this, but I don't trust his navigational skills.
Well, obviously,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if all these objects were honestly stolen from like
Ooh,
citizens of Oz, especially with them being in
ooh,
a pillowcase.
or other people he's had visitors murder. Like think about it. Oh my god, it's a conspiracy. They brought the witch's broom, right? Maybe the previous Dorothy, someone like Dorothy, had come and asked for help. They're like, go kill person X and bring me his diploma. These are all like trinkets of murder.
Well, that's terrifying. Okay,
Wow.
so basically up until this point, I had thought of Oz as just like this dumb man who failed upwards. And now I feel like there could be more, upstairs. He could be kind of conniving and
Hmm.
potentially a serial killer.
Well, he'd be more of like a cult leader because he's not killing anything. He's having people
Mm,
do his. If we're on this theory, he's having
yes,
four random children commit murder with their
right.
friends. In
He's like a Charles Manson.
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
This took a turn I was not expecting
Same.
today.
So now this murderous wizard, he's promising a free ride home. Well, I guess it wasn't free. She murders somebody to get to this ride. And then, to your point, fucking Toto jumps out of this goddamn basket, and she's like, "Oh, my dog." And again, I totally understand if one of my dogs was jumping out of a hot air balloon, I would go get it because I'm not flying anywhere without my dog.
No, yes, I would not be leaving my dog in Oz. I completely understand that.
But
But
then,
also, why can't Toto have
a
some
leash.
sense of like training or anything? Yes.
Yeah, yeah. But to your original theory of this man with not much upstairs, hot air balloon literally starts taking off. He's like, I can't control this thing. I think he like literally says that.
I liked when Toto jumped out and Dorothy follows and he says, "This is highly irregular. You've ruined my exit." Like
Yes, yes.
this is a very selfish, self-serving man, which it makes sense that he, accidentally showed up somewhere and became a cult leader. This all tracks, I think, with my personal opinions
Yeah.
of this guy now. Yeah, but
Um,
also he's like barely off the ground and he can't figure out how to
yeah.
stop this or help her. If he has a
Right.
PhD for real, it is not in hot air ballooning.
No. I'm starting to think he did murder someone for that.
Maybe he murdered someone for the hot air balloon and that's why he's so bad at controlling
Oh.
it.
Oh, yes. Oh, I love this for us. But not for Dorothy. Dorothy's now abandoned because this man finally left Oz, albeit on accident. And who shows up? Bubblegum Princess, Glinda, the Good Witch.
Princess Bubblegum.
Yeah, and cut to the chase here. She's just like, you could have gone home a long time ago. I forgot to tell you the secret steps. Like, if man, I would have slapped the shit out of her.
Yeah, I don't trust anyone in this world. Everyone has their own agenda. They're just using Dorothy and her dog for their own means.
Uh-huh.
When, again, don't know why, any of this couldn't have happened without Dorothy, because Dorothy did everything literally accidentally.
Yeah,
But no, I think
yeah,
Glinda's a little shady.
yeah. They all are. All four of them. The wizard, the presumed wizard, the witches. It's some sort of like struggle. Maybe Glinda wanted Oz gone too, and she's just waiting for someone to ask for a ride and him to be, gracious enough to give them a ride in this hot air balloon. And maybe she distracted Toto off screen, and that's why he jumped out and flew away the wizard because he couldn't control his exit.
Are you saying this was all like a coup by Glinda
Well, maybe she
to
was,
take over Oz?
yeah, maybe she was using Oz as like, north and south, and then east and west were bad. Like, okay, we got to team up. House falls down, kills one, opportunity arises. Let me show face to this new person into our world. I'm the good guy. Look how good and pretty I am.
Uh-huh.
Then the sister of the person who just got murdered accidentally shows up. Of course, she's grieving and is mad. She's making some threats. Maybe not the best choice, but now she's clearly painted as the bad guy. Avoid her. Go to the wizard. He'll set you straight. He does none of that.
Mhm.
In fact, he's like, "Go kill my bad guy, who's the son who you already met." And she's like, "Yeah, she's a mean person. I'm gonna go kill her. I guess. I don't know. I gotta go home somehow." Then, as Dorothy's gonna leave, she distracts Toto. Although I guess I don't know why she would want Dorothy to not leave, but basically Dorothy is the catalyst for the wizard getting back in his hot air balloon, which he cannot control, and he flies away, leaving one person left standing to rule all of Oz.
I
Damn.
don't I don't think I've ever heard anyone characterize the Wicked Witch as, of course she's grieving.
What she is.
No,
Listen, if if I had a Charlie Day chaos board, man, this would be perfect.
yeah.
Oh my god, I love this theory.
No, it's gone off the rails now. Um, so Glinda tells Dorothy she could have gone home this whole time, basically. I thought it was really funny when Dorothy wakes up back at home in Kansas. The farm hands are like also standing over her. I understand why this is happening for the point of the movie, but do you
Mm-hmm.
think that your like aunt and uncle's employees would be sitting at your bedside if you had like, I don't know, a bad accident?
Uh, yes and no. I mean, in this world, back in the farm in Kansas,
Okay, sure. Back in
um,
the farm.
um, in the very beginning, like it seems like they have a kinship. Yes, they're employees, but I believe they live on the land also.
Okay, that
So
makes more sense.
they would almost be like uncle like figures, you know,
Mhm.
or estranged family members of some sort. In the beginning, she's like playing around on a fence and falls into the pig pen, and everyone's like going in to save her because obviously she doesn't want anyone to get hurt. But I feel like there's
Mhm.
some sort of level of care, even on just a basic level.
Yeah, I mean, I did think that part was kind of weird too. Like, obviously, you don't want her to get hurt no matter who
Hmm.
she is, but it just did seem like they were very close to her and very
Yeah,
invested in her well-being.
yeah. I mean, if they do live on the farm, and who knows how long they've been living there as farm
Yeah.
hands, they've probably, I mean, they see her day in and day out. This is a beginning of an ongoing pattern we will probably continue to dive into of main characters' parents being MIA, presumed dead.
I feel like based on the very end of the movie and Dorothy saying there's no place like home. I get the impression that she's scarred for life by this experience and she literally never leaves her hometown.
I mean,
Never goes on to have
probably.
any other life experiences, probably becomes an old maid and or becomes bitter and disillusioned because she's just stuck on this farm the rest of her life, but also too scared to leave it. No, Glinda messed up her life,
Yeah.
for real.
Conspiracy theory even deeper, going with
Mhm.
Glinda being the one that really does everything. What if she used her magic witch power to create the Twister to bring Dorothy via house to Oz to crush her first enemy, Wicked Witch of the East? What if she controls all of this?
Yeah, anything's possible, I think. I'm pretty convinced now that Glinda's the real villain. So the movie hold up for you?
Yeah, I don't know anymore after this discussion. I mean, during the
Mhm.
watch, yes, it does play very childlike, and I'm watching it, taking notes. But it is something I've watched a lot growing up, and so it is hard to kind of look at it with fresh eyes. Until, of course, I talked to you, and now I have this whole murder theory, which makes it kind of hold up in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, like I've mentioned before, this was never a movie that I watched a lot, but I can appreciate it for what it is, for the pop culture touchstone it's become. My son had a really great time watching it. He had a lot of fun with it, so I can definitely understand the appeal if I had watched it more, I think, when I was younger. Um, and obviously, I love Judy Garland. If you have thoughts on this episode that you would like to share with us, or if you would like to share your own picks for movies that you watched repeatedly as a child, you can find us on Facebook at Back Through the Lens. You can find us on Instagram at Back Through the Lens Pod. You can also email us at backthroughthelenspodcast@gmail.com. We'd really love to hear your comments and thoughts on this, and we'd love to hear your movie picks too, because talking about movies is more fun when more people are involved than just the two of us.
If you enjoyed our show today, please give us a like and follow for updates on new and future episodes. Our show is produced by our hosts, Rachel Campbell and myself, Joe Siomick, with additional help and support from Peter Telep of LPV Productions. Rachel, Peter, and I are also the executive producers. Our awesome logo is brought to you by Tom Faraci, and our wonderful theme song is by Matt Tarek. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more trips into our movie watching past on Back Through the Lens. Boom.
No. Can I stop recording so it can upload?
Hell yeah.
All right.
Upload that bitch.